Welcome, and in today's video we're going to take a look at one of the most prestigious watch manufacturers in the world, Patek Philippe. But before we get started, please ensure to like, share and subscribe if you'd like to see more great videos like this one. So, we start the first part of our journey in what was once a war-torn part of Poland, formerly known as the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. It's the 14th of June, 1812, and it's 14 days away from the Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion and rule over Imperial Russia. We are in a little village in a modest family home positioned on the outskirts of the Duchy of Warsaw, and to a Miss Annie Piasecka and John Joachim Patek, Antoine Nobert Patek is born. These are very tough and troubling times. Within just a few short years of Napoleon's failed invasion, more fighting and control of the land ensued. In 1822, Anna, Joachim and Antoine moved to Poland's capital, Warsaw, in search for a better life. But this was short-lived. In 1828, Joachim became very ill, and needing money, 16-year-old Antoine joined the Polish 1st Mounted Rifles Regiment. But within 5 years of his joining, on the 7th of April, Antoine's father died. For the next 4.5 years, Antoine put his life and soul into the army. He courageously fought in the November Uprising, also known as the Polish-Russian War between 1830 to 31, where he was badly wounded on 2 occasions. On the 27th of February 1831, age 19, Antoine was promoted to the 2nd lieutenant, and on the 3rd of October, he was decorated with Poland's highest military decoration for heroism, the Virtuti Militari. However, after the downfall of the uprising, the Polish soldiers had no other option but to emigrate. If they didn't, they would face prison and execution. These now insurgents made their escape through Prussia through to France. But within just 2 years of having found work and settled, pressure put upon the French government by the Russian embassy ensured that all those had to leave. Many of the former insurgents, including Antoine, fled to Switzerland. In Switzerland, Antoine turned his hand to many a trade, selling luxury goods, fine wines and the such like, as well as training to paint and engrave. It is also here where his passion and interest for horology became prevalent. Antoine wasn't just resilient, a fighter and hard worker. He was extremely talented and engineering. He knew he could pretty much turn his hand to anything and walk his way into almost any career path he chose. But it wasn't just any career he wanted. He wanted to venture into the world of luxury watchmaking. On the 1st of May 1839, Antoine's future within the watch industry was about to change. He met former Czech-born Polish watchmaker Franciszek, or Francois Czapek, and together that same year they formed Patek, Czapek and Chi. Francois was producing exceptional and today extremely important horological timepieces, and Antoine was the mastermind behind their marketing. The company grew quickly. However, this incredible alliance was fraught in arguments, and in 1844, Antoine and Francois were at loggerheads in one of their biggest disputes. Both men simply had enough, and abruptly they went their own separate ways. Now, the second part of our journey starts just over 400 miles away from Switzerland in a small rural and agricultural town 50 miles southwest from Paris in Eure-et-Loire, France. On the 16th of April 1815, to a highly renowned and ingenious watchmaker, Jean-Antoine Philippe, the creator of such marvels as moon phases, multi-calendar, repeating chime movements and pocket watches, and his wife Marie-Jeanne Catherine, was born Jean-Adrien Philippe. Unlike Antoine's tough upbringing, Adrian was born into a moderately well-off family. From a young age, Adrian would sit alongside his father, learning all that he could from him. In fact, all of his brothers had a set place to sit at their father's workbench. In 1833, at the age of 18, Adrian felt that he had learned all that he could from his father and that it was time for him to further develop his knowledge by working alongside other master watchmakers. During such time, Adrian fell upon hardship. He did find work in Le Havre at a chronometer manufacturer's, and by 1836, at the age of 21, he had made some extremely exceptional timepieces. And every second of Adrian's day was either making, talking about, or reading technical books about movements and watches. And even with his masterclass training and worldly knowledge, Adrian still felt that this was not enough. He had succeeded in France, but he had his sights on a much bigger picture. And to achieve this, he needed to further improve his technical skills in London or Switzerland. Adrian chose to embrace London. Unfortunately, little is documented on the 8 years Adrian spent studying and working in London, but what we do know is, in 1842, his training had paid off. He had invented and patented a mechanism that was about to change the watch world forever. He set to work on making his mechanism a reality, and by 1844, with his new movement in hand, he set off to France. So, it's now 1844, and the world's attention is focused upon one of the largest events in history, the 10th Industrial Exposition, held in the Champs-Élysées in Paris. This was no ordinary affair. It started on the 1st of May and closed 60 days later on the 29th of June. 3,960 exhibitors of luxury goods, precious metals, minerals, fine arts, watches, jewellery, you name it, were exhibiting. And if you weren't exhibiting, you were most certainly there as a spectator. And Antoine, being one of those individuals, was most certainly there. While walking around the vast halls, a small exhibit caught his eye. Antoine had stumbled upon a little watchmaker's stand with a revolutionary invention, a mechanism that used only one means of winding and setting the time. All timepieces prior to this required an additional key to wind the movement. Antoine was in awe. The stand belonged to none other than Jean-Adrien Philippe. From that moment, Antoine knew he had to get Adrian on board as his business partner. And of course, he did. The mechanism Adrian produced won the gold prize at that year's event, and the following year in 1845, with the combined efforts of another Polish immigrant who fled the country at the same time as Antoine, a lawyer and financier to the project, Vincent Goskowski, they formed Patek Philippe. However, Adrian's revolutionary mechanism was put on the back burner until the company was back in profit. They initially started out making and supplying embouche movements, basically raw movements to sell on to watch manufacturers. With the horological brilliance of Adrian and the sheer genius marketing skills of Antoine, they quickly recovered their costs and saw their business flourish. Adrian was finally able to return his focus upon his project. And for his recognition and the company's successes, Antoine changed the company name to Patek Philippe and Chi in 1851, and just in time for one of the most pinnacle moments in their making. Adrian had been working endlessly on completing his new masterpieces, a range of luxurious men's pocket watches and 30mm ladies' pendant watches, hand enamelled and encrusted with precious jewels and diamonds. His desire to attract wealthy ladies and gentlemen, whereas Antoine's desire was to attract royalty. With that intention, the same year, Antoine booked a stand at the first of one of the most important events of its time, the Great Exhibition, organised by the brilliant inventor Sir Henry Cole and his good friend, Prince Albert, the husband to the reigning monarch, Queen Victoria. The event was held in London's Hyde Park, inside a huge temporary glass building, as previously mentioned in my video on the Rolex GMT Master 2 with Jubilee. This was Antoine and Adrian's golden opportunity, and they seized the moment. That opening day, Queen Victoria didn't just visit their stand the once, she returned many times. She was overwhelmed with the beauty and magic of the workmanship, the colours and delicate size of the gold-encrusted pendants and watch cases. But above all, She was mesmerised by the movement's keyless mechanism. It is thought that Queen Victoria was presented with the watch, but in actuality, she didn't wait around long enough to be presented with one. She purchased the powder blue enamelled watch she had her eyes on before anyone else could get their hands on it. This single pinnacle moment marked the foundation to Patek Philippe's 177-year-long success. Antoine inevitably didn't stop there. He wanted Patek Philippe not to just be innovators, but a global success story. And even with the limited transport system and having to live out of rundown guest houses, eating poor quality food and running into many potential dangers while travelling in packed trains with watches and rolls of bank checks and money, he made damn sure the brand would make it elsewhere. For the next 7 years, he travelled much of the world, from the USA and Europe to Russia and home again, rubbing shoulders with the high profile and high society, leaving the occasional marketing gift to the likes of dukes and countesses to further enhance their brand within those individuals' social circles. By this point, Antoine was also heavily involved with many European countries' international affairs, and upon his final return to Switzerland, his immense achievements of not just introducing Patek Philippe watches to the world, but opening the world to Switzerland and, of course, Swiss-made watches, earned him his long-awaited citizenship. Antoine became an ambassador for Geneva. But don't just think Adrian was sitting there twiddling his thumbs waiting for Antoine's return. He was not only manufacturing bulk loads of orders Antoine was attaining. By 1863, he had just published a book in Geneva and Paris about the inner workings of the pocket watch. And he was working on his next revelations in time for Napoleon III's Second World's Fair in Paris, the Exposition Universelle. On the 1st of April 1867, for 7 months until the 3rd of November, in 119 acres of military ground in the Champ de Mars, 50,226 exhibitors from 42 nations presented their worldly goods, among them Patek Philippe and Chi, and on their display, other than Adrian's first tourbillon regulated pocket watches, is his latest invention, the free mainspring, otherwise known as the slipping spring. Basically, it meant for the very first time you could overwind a watch without causing damage to the mainspring. This genius contraption not only became a fundamentally important part of every movement from that day on, it is still as fundamentally important as his first invention, the keyless mechanism in self-winding watches of today. And at that year's event, Patek Philippe won the grand gold prize. But while on this wonderful running winning streak, things were about to change. Antoine had become very ill. In 1875, his health deteriorated quickly. He was suffering with anemia, and in fear that all of his hard work could be undone, he needed to secure a worthy successor, and he knew the right people for the job. He drew up plans immediately for 3 trusted employees, Albert Singria, Gabriel Marie Rouge, and Edward Cohn, to become co-owners. Though Antoine married and had a son, Leon really had no interest in the business. On March the 1st, 1877, Antoine Norbert de Patek died at the age of 65. And for the remaining years, up until Jean-Adrien Philippe's passing on the 5th of January 1894, the company continued to successfully operate with the same chosen partners until the arrival of the next generation. Thank you for watching part 1 of Patek Philippe, the Grand Complication. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to see part 2, as well as other great videos like this one, then please ensure to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned.